Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EVN Disrupt podcast. My name is Tigran. I'm the editor of the tech section here at EVN Report. Today, my guest is Tigran Shahverdyan. Tigran is the co-founder and chief technology officer at Robomart. He's also involved in the Gituzh initiative, an advocacy group for advancing the state of science in Armenia. Tigran, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for inviting.
Thank you for being here. Tigran, I want to start with a little bit of your background. I know you graduated from FizMath, which is one of these specialized schools in Armenia that puts a heavy emphasis on science. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience studying at FizMath in high school, and what is it about that environment that has produced so many founders and people in the tech community in Armenia?
Yeah, so from the sixth grade, I started studying in FizMath. Back then, it was only from 6 to 10, and actually the whole system was 10 years, the school years. So, to be honest, at some point I didn't want to go there, so my parents kind of forced me a bit, but I'm happy that they did. I think one of the reasons that we see some kind of correlation of people who are graduating from this school and people who have success in tech and other fields also is because they put, I think, high filter at the entrance. They really test you a lot before accepting. I mean, there's and it's specialized obviously in more on STEM, physics and math. So you would see more people in these fields, but I think also the skills in STEM sometimes help people also succeed in other fields. One of the things is really the entrance barrier. And
is there an admissions exam?
Yeah. It changed over time. I remember that when I was just preparing, there were some interesting courses, like for math specifically, and you could go and prepare in the school. Like there were teachers from FizMath school who would work with you to prepare for the exams, and then for people who participated actually in these courses, they had like I think more chances like into getting accepted. But then there was also more broader exam for the entrance. I don't remember. I think maybe I got accepted from the first try from before the broader exam. But the exams are actually they have like higher like criteria, the higher barrier, and also then later, obviously during the education, they have like really great teachers there. In the school that work with you. There are also, so I had really great teachers in math and physics and other fields too. I don't want to only focus on this, but because this was like physics was the most interesting topic for me. Space was my biggest passion, I would say, but it's obviously connected directly to physics, and obviously you also need to have some knowledge in math to be
right
to be here. So I'm not very deep in math, I would say. There are people who would go to math Olympiads and get like medals and stuff. I was more focused on physics and astronomy. And there was also one of my, I would say, great teachers is Gituzh, who was also doing these extracurricular courses for physics and preparing students for International Physics Olympiad. And a lot of his students got very successful because, I mean, obviously in order to go to him, and it was not like he won't accept you, but I mean, if you go there, you need to show some progress, and
your chance of success would become higher.
Yeah, and you can, if you really work, if you really are interested, you could learn a lot from him. And I would say that I remember there are certain things in physics, like really thinking how a physicist should think about the nature, I got from him, that I learned from him directly.
Is there anything about the culture or the model at FizMath that you think is replicable across the entire public school system in Armenia or anywhere in the world?
I'm sure there are, but I can't really name them, to be honest. The main thing, the first thing that I mentioned, right, that you have a higher entry barrier, you can't replicate this, right, because it's already like filtering out from all the schools who really have the interest or already shown some result, students, and accepting them there. This is one of the specialized schools, so you can't really in this sense you can't really replicate it fully, but I'm sure there are learnings from there that can be just I can't really
Yeah.
name them probably.
Okay, so after graduating from FizMath, where'd you go off to do your university studies?
So one of my teachers, physics teacher actually, he was like mentioning this all the time, like preparing me for this thought that maybe I should go and study in Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology. It's shortened. It's called FISTER. Like that's how usually in the region or in post-Soviet area the university is called. And actually, this teacher that I mentioned, who had extracurricular courses, he himself is graduate of FISTER. And then when I started like also going to his courses at 9th and 10th grades, he also started talking about it. And I kind of got like used to this idea, but I was, I don't know, I was delaying this decision in a sense. And there was this system, I think it's still in place, that from post-Soviet area any students who are part of the national teams to go to international Olympiads for physics, and I think maybe a few other Olympiads too, they can automatically get accepted to the university without exams.
Just by participating in the Olympiad?
Yeah, just being in the national team. You don't even need to win.
Wow.
So, but obviously, so the Olympiad happens, I think, midsummer, somewhere. I forgot the exact dates. Acceptance obviously happens a bit before, so you need to tell in advance. And I didn't got actually how it should work, I think, or maybe I didn't listen well. Probably they told me I didn't listen well. And we were flying, actually. I remember we are in a flight. We are flying to the Olympiad. It was in Bali that year, Indonesia. And we are talking to our teacher, who was also the leader of the team. He was one of the people who would take the children to the Olympiad. And he's like, look, I told you, and you should have told me that you want to go there, because I would have told them so they could accept you. But now the dates have passed already. I said, okay, what a bummer. Like, probably is this. And then, okay, look, you need to get something from the Olympiad. You need to win probably something. And then we can go, because people from the university are also taking the Russian team there.
Right.
So we can talk to them. I said, okay. So there was some kind of motivation to get some medal. I got actually bronze medal from the Olympiad, and I think for a long time that nobody received that from Armenia after the collapse of Soviet Union. Maybe the first years after the collapse there were some medals, but then for a longer year nobody really got medal. So I was, in a sense, the first one from Armenia to get. Later on, people did much better. We have several gold medals, even, which is great. And this was a reason. She said, okay, let's go talk to them. If you are really interested in going, let's go talk to them. And we met with the deputy dean of the physics department of the university. He was there also with the Russian team. And he's like, I remember it was very short. Like, we came to him, he's like, you dreamed into going to MIPT? I said, yeah. He's like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And then we went back, and I got accepted to Yerevan State University, and there was a specialized physics group there, which had like more like harder course. Like, then they used to pick like people who are really interested in physics and show good results in a separate group. Back then there was many applicants. Like these days they don't have it, because the interest for physics really declined after.
They got rid of the program altogether?
No, there is a physics department, but the specialized group is not there, because there are not so many students, and so in order to have a special separate like group for that.
What was the size of the group back then?
I remember, I think maybe 10, 12, I think there. So I got accepted there. Again, they didn't take any exams from me, because I got a medal from. I had many also medals from the Armenian National Olympiad. So, and also I think from the international one, they didn't actually ask me to get any exams. And I was actually waiting. Is there any news from Moscow about getting accepted? And it was, I think, 5th of September, something like already a few days I'm going and studying, that Gagik Grigoryan called me, our instructor from this extracurricular group, also took us to Olympiad. That, look, I just got an email from Slobodyanin. Slobodyanin is the last name of the deputy dean, that they managed to get a extra place, basically extra scholarship for you, so you can go and study. I was really like, okay, this changes everything. Now
Yeah.
I need to go in I was outside of Armenia because like 2 years before that I went to also astronomy Olympiad, and it was first time, but this was like, okay, I need to go live there now.
Yeah.
And that's how basically I think in few days we got sorted out everything, and I flew there. So I was few days late from the 1st of September, but I started like learning and
yeah. So you did your undergrad in physics
there,
and then you went to grad school in physics as well.
Yeah, so I continued in the same university in the grad school, got the master's. This was probably from the level of the grad school, I already started like questioning, okay, I'm learning all these things. Why am I doing this? I was really like into like learning everything. I was interested, and I was getting high marks, but always there was a question, okay, like what's next? What am I going to do? I had to change few like groups because I didn't like different things. Like in one places I was studying, but I was not getting enough scholarship so I can maintain myself. And I said, okay, I can't like continue asking for support from my parents. I need to do something. So, but it threw me in another direction. I started working in a company. I actually worked in a company called Abby. You probably know about it. It's founded by David Yan, and Aram Parchanyan is also vice president there. So I worked there for a few years. But in parallel, I was also doing my master's, but I saw that I can't really continue. Like if I really want to advance in like science, I need to leave working and find a place where I can really at least get some scholarship or salary that I can maintain myself.
Right.
So in the first year of the PhD studies, I was already accepted in one group. Like I understood that I didn't choose this wisely. It's not really interesting for me. And it was a moment I started thinking, I had some, I would say, in a sense, a crisis, like, okay, well, I need to decide finally what I need to do. It was interesting that it was probably the first time I really started thinking deeply, what are my interests? Like, what am I passionate really about? Not just like what I want to do now or like where I see the path, it's easy to see where it goes, but what am I passionate about? And I understood that from my childhood, I was really interested in space. And second, I always loved building things. So it was obvious for me, okay, I want to go into space engineering, aerospace engineering, specifically space. So I started looking into universities abroad, also in US, in Europe. I thought I should apply there. It was like winter and all the dates have already passed. So I was thinking, okay, like I should probably wait for another year, but what I should do for a year. For some reason, I thought that I'm probably, whatever I achieved right now or my topics are in physics, so I probably won't be easily getting into like PhD in another topic.
Right.
So I said, okay, let me find a place where I can work on this topic in Moscow. And I started looking. This time I was, this is very important, I think, and I always give this advice to students who are asking me, like, should I continue this topic or not?
Yeah.
The most important thing when it comes to PhD level and also probably in the master's level, topic is obviously very important, but I would say more important that who's your advisor and how well you get along with him. So because I had few experiences before where I went into some scientific group, just because of the topic, the name of the group, and then I started working with people and understood, okay, this is not the place I want to be. That experience like forced me to completely rethink and come from the perspective, who am I going to work to? Who's going to be my advisor? And I started really interviewing myself in a sense, like people who are in the topic. Obviously, they were interviewing me too, but for me it was important, like, who am I going to work to? I even talked to some of the students of the advisor to see like how what feedback the
work culture is.
And I'm always like, this is one of the things I always advise to students who want to learn, go to PhD or even masters, when there is advisor. That's one of the key things. And I found an advisor in a Space Research Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences. So one of the things was important, I didn't want to get into the special companies that were doing the engineering part, and they required some kind of clearance and stuff.
Like
Because
military
like,
clearance.
Yeah. Because it's like space is always considered dual use,
Right.
and it is in a sense. In many cases, I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to get any clearance, obviously. And I went into scientific institute, which is just doing research. And obviously, we worked there on a space plasma physics, and we designed instruments for measuring space plasma and getting the data. But we didn't work specifically on the spacecraft. We just like worked with the company who was building the spacecraft, how to put our instrument on their platform and then launch. So I worked on several projects there, and it was really interesting. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
My thesis was the topic. I tried one topic quickly, but it didn't work out. It was about the comet's tail, and my advisor had instrument that he put on one of the space missions previously, and he wanted us to see if we can get some new insights from the data that he collected, but we quickly understood that there is not enough data to get something, and we switched to Venus magnetosphere, which is like very interesting topic where there was a lot of data from before, and we started seeing some interesting questions there that are not answered yet, and I started working on it. So after 2 years, we had some progress, but in parallel, I was also working on some instruments for other missions. I was part of a lunar lander program. It was really exciting, but every time we saw how the deadlines were shifting for the Russian space program, at some point I already saw that this might, and until now they haven't launched. So that was 2012. I left.
So 10 years ago.
Institute, 10 years ago, and they still haven't launched.
So you made a good decision. Yeah. Did you get a lot of engineering experience there?
Yeah. So because our instruments had to work in a space environment, and I was a project manager for two instruments. Two instruments. They were a bit different, and it was very interesting. One was space plasma, basically when you detect the charged particles. The other one was, and it's actually very interesting, I had to also dive deep into understanding this topic too, for space dust. So small interplanetary or interstellar particles that are in our solar system, and there are basically two groups. One is interplanetary, which is rotating around the sun, and the other group is interstellar, so something that came out of our solar system. And you can differentiate them by their speeds, actually, because due to of the like Kepler laws, you can understand if the speed is like above the second cosmic speed, for the solar system, then it means it came from outside of the solar system. We are designing an instrument that can actually, first of all, measure the speed, and by that differentiate between two groups, and then also measure where it came from, but also measure what's the composition, what elements are in the small part of dust, and then you can do we can see that whatever is coming from outside has this composition, and whatever is inside our planetary system has another composition. And also there was a hypothesis that whatever we see there is actually remains from the time that our solar system formed, so we can get a really good insights of what was happening during
early
the
days
formation of the solar system. It was really exciting, and I was designing that instrument.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I had to work with instruments that need to work in the space environment.
In space, So these days you're more known for your work with robots on Earth. You're the founder of Robomart, but before Robomart, you built a company called RoboCV. Can you tell us a little bit about the founding of that company and what it did?
Yeah, so when I left in 2012, the institute, actually at first, so there's like in between a few things happened. In 2012, I got, actually a bit before, I got accepted to International Space University. It's a very interesting institution, and a lot of people from all over the world come and study there.
Where is it?
It's headquartered in France, Strasbourg. They have their master's program for a year, but they started initially from this short course or program 2 months program, very like compact and very intensive. It's called Space Studies Program, SSP, and in 2012 it was 25th of kind of anniversary of this program. And because it was a anniversary, they planned to do it in Florida with the Kennedy Space Center near the Cape Canaveral, and like a lot of people from all over the world. Like there were, I think, about 130 participants and like many nationalities there. And for 2 months, we had to study together. We had to go to all these like field trips together, do some projects, have fun also. Like it was very energetic environment. Oh yeah, and also just before flying there, it coincided that the week before there was a meeting of the teams in Washington DC of Google Lunar X Prize competition. And while I was in the Space Research Institute, I was also part of this team that was from Russia, the only team from Russia called Zelenokhod. And as I was going to go to this program, I went also to this team summit to represent our team. And when we finished, it was like very interesting program. I can talk about it more, but I got a lot of like connections, learnings, and also we did some interesting projects. And when I went back to Moscow, I decided, okay, I wanna leave the institute. And by that time, we also managed to fundraise some amount of investment for Zelenokhod, the lunar rover, basically project. And
it was a project to send a rover to the moon?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So the whole competition was called Google Lunar X Prize. It was managed by X Prize Foundation, which still is there and does a lot of other projects. But the prize money was put by Google, 30 million prize money, and the main prize was, I think, $20 million. Whoever lands there successfully and at least manages to move 500 meters. And there were like some secondary prizes after that.
How were you supposed to launch? Like, were you supposed to build your own launch vehicle, or?
That was open, like, do whatever you want. If you want to, like, pay for a launch or do yourself, I mean, obviously it's easier to just probably pay for it.
Right.
Or, like, ride share with someone. Let's say there's a government program and you just collaborate with them and you build the rover. It goes there. It also does some scientific mission for the...
For the government.
So we were actually trying to get into these lunar programs of Russia to get there with the rover, because they had landers. We said, okay, let's also have a rover there.
Right.
So we managed to fundraise some private investment, and when I got back to Moscow, I said, okay, I'm leaving the institute and I'll go join full time this team. And we started working, but about like a year after, I understood that like doing private like space really in Russia is really hard, especially like lunar projects. I mean, it was just starting, at least more traditional space business like satellites or remote sensing, these kind of things. A few of our team started working on before this, like started working on a robotics project, and the company actually was called RoboCV. And at that time, there was still question, okay, what should the company focus on? And after a year, I decided to leave Zelenokhod, and I started talking to the guys who were in RoboCV, and there was like moment of like pivoting basically the company. In a sense, like relaunching or focusing on specific things, and together we decided, okay, let's focus on warehouse robotics. So and at that time we got a contract from Samsung actually to automate some of their processes in their warehouses in Russia, in Kaluga region. And that's how basically we kickstarted this project. I remember for 3 months we were living in Kaluga region. We rented a house there, like 15 minutes away from their warehouse, their manufacturing plant, and we would go there. And basically after their shift ended about 5 p.m., we would start working, actually developing our product like there in the warehouse, in the actual environment. And I think it took about 3 months. Like in the end, we finished, we launched it. It's I think until now it's still working there.
When you say warehouse robots, what are you talking about?
So this first product was about taking. It's like imagine like a small electric car that has this line of small I don't know, kind of like dollies on the back, which are connected to each other. And you have components that need to go from a warehouse to the manufacturing lines, so that the people can take, and then it goes to manufacturing line. And all this process was done manually, like somebody was driving this car, so they wanted to automate it so that it can automatically go there, stop, and then they will unload all these like things, and then somebody will give him a command to go back. And then there are people in the warehouse who are prepared another chain of dollies that needs to be connected, and it can go back.
And these are autonomous.
Yeah, so we made them autonomous, and they were like driving, basically driverless, driving themselves, self-driving.
This is 2012?
This is 2013.
Still very early for autonomous systems.
Yeah. So I obviously, like, Google's project was already there and it's actually very different environment. The closed warehouse environment is very different from what's on the streets.
Because it's controlled.
It's controlled. It still has a lot of chaotic parts there, but also the regulations are different.
Right.
And I would argue that it's much easier to do in the warehouses than on the actual streets. And then after that, we started working on forklifts. Basically, it's actually called pallet truck. It's a small, again, electric car. Imagine that have these forks that can take the palletized, and move them. And we worked like pretty long, I guess, like 2 years maybe after that on that. And then this time we were working with a company called FM Logistic. It's one of the largest, or maybe the largest European, or I don't remember the exact size, but they are very big in third-party logistics. And they had their like warehouses in Russia, and they wanted automating this several parts of their internal logistics, I would say. So we again spent a lot of time on this, like we automated, and finally it started working. And we could even take pallets from the second level if they were not so high on the racks in the warehouses. So the issues with the company were that so there were 3 co-founders that we were working on the RoboCV, and I think obviously part of biggest part is our mistake that we relied too much on the Russian market. We thought that we'll just start here, we'll take all the market there, and then we'll go outside. But to be honest, there was not much of a market there. Then there were big problems like people's labor is very cheap in Russia. So and though we had much cheaper product than you can get in Europe or in US, but still the return of investment for when they were calculating these companies, it was longer than the best case 3 years or even 5 years. And nobody in Russia was planning longer than 3 years, 5 years, and most of them, they were not planning longer than 3 years. So it was hard to sell really in Russia. And I think our mistake was that we should have started like moving our business part, at least our operations, like to Europe or US much earlier.
You think it would have worked in the US?
Yeah, and also obviously 2013, all the geopolitical situations started like worsening with Russia, right? And that also we were raising actually some investments, and we couldn't actually get. There was interest from foreign investors, but then it like stopped basically.
Right.
And when the time came that we actually had a good technology. We needed to get another funding to continue. We couldn't get it inside Russia. I mean, it's hard. It's harder. And the international investors were not interested. So this is at some point in 2017. I understood. Okay, the company can survive. Actually, we tried several ways. We actually even tried 2 out of 3 co-founders, we decided together to maybe create some kind of spin-off and continue in another way. But then it didn't work out. So I understood that the company it's going to probably survive, yes, but it's not going to be like a huge success, like a startup story, right? So in 2017 I left, and I decided to come to US with my ex-wife back then, and we came to New York. At first I was really burned with my experience with my first startup. I was very tired.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things also that I learned, and now with my current companies I really try to allocate some time to really do something else. It's not about like just resting. Rest is also, I need to at least rest 1 day a week, but also do some other things that can really, that are meaningful, that are important.
Hobbies, and I think it's called like active resting, right? Yeah. Like for instance, if you're reading, or if, I don't know, if jiu-jitsu is your thing or something to take your mind off what your primary work is. So eventually you built the company that you're working on now, Robomart. What's the story with Robomart? What's the founding story of it?
Yeah. So I was in New York actually, and I was looking for maybe joining some company and having being in more like environment where I don't need to be in a place of founder where we need to hustle all the time. And I was obviously interested in similar industry like warehouse automation, but more I was interested in self-driving cars companies. So I was looking into different companies, but because at the moment I didn't have a working visa, it was really hard to get into this company. So the only option usually with this situation, that one of the ways to go is to see what startups are there, because startups are more flexible in that sense, and they can work with you to get the working visa. After looking some time, first of all, I forgot. So I was thinking also to go back to the PhD and finally do my aerospace engineering PhD.
Right.
So I applied to several schools, the top ones in the US. And while I was waiting for the answer, I said, okay, let me check what companies are there. And then while I was waiting, I was checking the news, reaching out to people. I found about Robomart. So it was a concept back then. So my current co-founders, they took a small model, like really a mock-up, into CES in 2018. And they were pitching this idea basically to the public and also to investors, that like stores that can come to you.
Yeah.
And I found it in the news. I said, oh, this is really interesting, because first of all, I mean, the vision until now and back then was that it's going to be self-driving.
Right.
And first of all, like technically, okay, I thought that this is something that fits my experience. But second, I also, it was interesting for me because I saw that you can, something I would say personal, like, because I grew up in Armenia and I always had access to this like fresh, really high quality produce.
Right.
And then later on I noticed that I lost that access basically when I went to big city and I couldn't. Well, one of the things I always tell, like, people think I'm focusing too much on it. I really love this tasty big tomatoes in Armenia.
It's so funny you say that, because I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and I hated tomatoes in Canada, but in Armenia I like tomatoes. Yeah, like the taste is like, it's like a completely different fruit,
it's like
vegetable.
this like big, even not many big ones, like maybe even middle size, but that you could like eat like an apple, like take in your hand and just like you don't cut it, you just eat it like an apple, like fully, like everything.
Yeah.
And I used to do it all the time when I was a kid, and then I noticed that I can't get really good tomatoes. I mean, okay, they are good. It's not like completely nothing, but they are not really so tasty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this might be a good way to get the local farmers' goods to people, make them more accessible.
It's like a farmer's market on wheels.
Yeah. So one of the ways how can this work is that when you have local farmers, you can shorten the logistic chain basically, because one of the reasons we have this produce which can stay fresh for a longer time but tastes much worse than the really good ones is because you have bigger logistic chains and you want the produce to not spoil until it gets to the consumers.
Right. It's
But
more
if you
efficient.
shorten it, you can get like much fresh stuff to the consumers. So that was like two parts of the things that got really me interested. But the company was obviously my co-founders, current co-founders, and they were in Bay Area. So I was in New York. And then it coincided because I also was talking to one of my friends from Moscow. He was moving to US to become a CTO in a company which is also in the self-driving space. And I talked to him. He said, "Look, I need really people who are like who can work on different things and can understand on a system level, who can have a broader knowledge base and can dive into different areas. So come, I would like you to join us." I said, "Okay, I have probably maybe two options. Let me go to Bay Area and see where I see myself fitting better." I flew to US, to Bay Area. I spent a week at my friend's place. My friend who actually I met in ISU, in the International Space University, who is actually from Canada also.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, really good friend. And it was great. I messaged him, "Hey man, I'm coming there." He said, "Come on, you can stay with us." I didn't even ask him. He's like, "You can come and stay." I said, "Thanks, man. Really, it's really helpful." So I stayed with them a week. I talked to people, and then finally, I decided to join the Robomart, and there were like two reasons. Basically, I saw that there, my experience is really applicable, and my co-founders they are not technical, so I saw that, and I always like to think from a systems level, and this is something that comes from my experience in space.
Right.
And there is a discipline called systems engineering, and this is one of the things I'm really interested on looking into, on the systems from this like interconnected subsystems perspective that you need to really design and then make it. So for me, it was a system, and I had some experience with at least parts of it.
Right.
So that was the technical part, and also the emotional part, which I really understood. This is going to be great. In my friend's company, in other place, it was a bit bigger, like more advanced stage, and
it was self-driving.
It was a. It is still there. It's a company that creates technology for teleoperations, like remotely operating.
Oh, okay.
And there I could get obviously more competitive salary, but less ownership, I would say, and less. It was, and that was not the most important thing for me. I couldn't understand really what were my responsibilities there if I go there. So here I decided to join Ali and Emad also. At that moment, basically, we joined almost the same time. He obviously joined a bit earlier. He was not full time. He was helping Ali with like few months maybe before. Actually, Robomart's idea is much older, and the idea came to Emad, not to Ali, my co-founder, who's the CEO, Ali. 14 years ago,
wow.
he thought about this because he was working in a ice cream division of Unilever, and he thought that what if we recreate this ice cream truck concept for everything else, not only ice cream. But back then you didn't have phones, like it was only like basically the
you didn't have mobile phones.
We didn't have the mobile phones, so they couldn't launch it inside the company, and then later on, when Ali actually was in UK for about 10 years, and then he came to US, and he thought that maybe it's the great time to start working on this idea. And about the same time, they presented the concept. I found out about it. I came there, I met them, and I decided to really join, and then let's create this.
So was this around 2018?
Yeah, this was beginning of 2018.
Okay.
Actually, I found about Robomart. So CES it in January, right? So I found about in the news about it, and then I think February or March I flew to Bay Area and stayed there.
Yeah. If my understanding is correct, Robomart essentially is you have an app where you can, in certain areas right now in Los Angeles, you can call the Robomart car, which is an autonomous car that doesn't have a driver, to come to your area where you are. And it opens up, and it's essentially a mini grocery store. And you can buy produce or other grocery items from it, right?
Partially,
okay.
True. So it's actually we have a driver at the moment,
Oh.
and there are several things that if you have seen. So in 2018 we created in June we launched, we created and started like working and demoing and also preparing our driverless Robomart full scale.
Okay. So that's not launched yet.
No, that's not launched.
Okay.
So that's our vision, how it's going to be. So we created it, and we actually were going with we wanted to go like with like this wide front, and there is the business innovation side of like this new way of getting the goods, and also the self-driving part. We also wanted to push that ahead. But when time passed, we understood that people are seeing several risks there. I mean, obviously every startup is a risky venture. And when you have investors looking and assessing like should they invest or not, there are many factors that they consider. And we saw that there are few risks that people see. I mean, self-driving cars are still, the tech is still not there, right?
To be completely autonomous.
Yeah, so we see other players doing, but it's still not fully there. And even back then, obviously, even less advanced. One of the risks they saw was the tech risk. Second was the regulations risk, because the regulations were still advancing. And the third one is actually the business model. Like, is this really something that people would like to use? So in our mind, I mean, it was like, I'm sure self-driving tech is going to be there. Regulations are going to be for that. And the business model, we are sure is going to work. And
just a matter of time.
Right now. But again, that was back then, and we didn't have much proof.
Right.
And it's very counterintuitive to many people, actually, that why should this way of shopping work? So at some point we decided, okay, it's important to, especially when the COVID started, we decided, okay, now it's time actually to quickly launch.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, let's put aside other risks, like just park them for a moment and focus on actually launching the business and scaling and getting the first like proof points and then scaling. So we created this Robomart right now, which is actually driven, but I was actually very adamant about that there should not be any interaction of the driver with the customer. So the driver is just there for driving, and they should not even like talk. And we tinted actually the windows so they don't even interact with each other. So for a consumer, it should be as if it's like self-driving.
It worked.
Fully automated.
Yeah, you fooled me, because when I was looking at the videos, I really thought it was autonomous.
So I mean, there was no intention to fool, but the thing is that we want people to have this fully automated experience. And later on, I mean, when we switch to fully self-driving, that will be much easier. If we started like putting some responsibilities on the driver to do something else, first of all, it would kill the whole user experience. Second, it would have been harder to switch.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how we decided to go, and we started actually quickly working, and there were like a lot of stories. Like we got accepted actually to HAX, which is in China, and it's the biggest hardware accelerator in the world. And we were supposed to go there and work on prototyping our Robomarts.
Yeah.
But we were supposed to fly there in January or February 2020.
Good thing you didn't.
No, we couldn't.
Right, you couldn't.
We couldn't because I remember that moment. We were planning how we are going to go to Shenzhen, and then I saw in the news there's this like news about some virus in China, and I was talking to my co-founder, like, guys, have you seen this? Like, there's some virus. Like, it's fine, it will quickly solve. I said, I am started to get worried. And obviously it's we are laughing about it. It's not good whatever happened, but it really made it much harder for us. I mean, how can you do hardware accelerator
remotely? Yeah, you can't.
But it forced us to really think creatively, what are we going to do here? And we like tweaked it, like changed the whole concept, like the system, how we are going to make as simple as possible. And it was few iterations. So we already decided, okay, we are going to take a van, and we are going to just like put our system inside and launch it. And then I finally came. I remember I was in Armenia. I finally came to US in July, and I was sitting and fully working, preparing everything with our partner in Bay Area, and then in 3.5 months, I think I was there working on it. And then in September, the war in Karabakh started in Artsakh. I couldn't really stay remotely. I thought I need to go there and be there with my people and see how I can help. So I talked to my co-founders. I said, look guys, I can't, I need to go. So look, if it's what your like heart wants, then we are fully supporting you. We'll figure out how to really do this, even if you are remote. And then after that, I started thinking, okay, if I'm flying now, what I need to do really so that the work doesn't stop.
Yeah, in California.
And this is one of the situations when I thought we simplified as much as we could. But then this situation like forced to think even more creatively, like how can we simplify it even more?
Yeah.
And like in 30 minutes, I remember I was talking to Ali, like, okay, what we can do. And in like 30 minutes, like we, over the phone, he was in LA, I was in Bay Area. We discussed everything. We already knew how we are going to finish the Robomart in 3 days.
Wow.
And we did. Like in 3 days, it was like a hackathon. Like Ali, like just next day he drove to Bay Area.
Yeah.
And we talked to our partner there who was working on a making the mechanical parts. And we put everything together, and in 3 days it was ready. It was working.
Yeah.
And he drove the first Robomart to LA.
Wow.
And in a few hours, I just packed our things because I didn't need to be there anymore. So I just packed everything that we had there, flew after him to LA too.
Totally.
And then in a few days, I flew to Armenia. And then, like, for a long time, for 11 months, actually, I was remotely working. I mean, it was going forward. But so what happened next? We had the first Robomart in December in 2020. We did our alpha launch. We had, like, really small number of peoples, and we tested with them.
Mm-hmm.
Not our friends, like, more like friends of friends.
Yeah.
So it's not, like, fully biased.
To get more honest answers, feedback.
Like for 3 weeks, I think we did this test, and it was really great. We got some really great results, and also feedback, like what we need to make better. And then after that, we started implementing all the feedback. We worked on a few other things that we were postponing, and a lot of advancements in the software. And then the second Robomart already was made during this time. And in June in 2021, we launched the beta, invite-only beta, that we in LA. So we had already 2 Robomarts, snacks and pharmacy, and with our partner Reef, we launched it and started operating.
What do you mean by pharmacy?
I was remote all this time.
You were remote the whole time.
Yeah,
wow.
when we launched both alpha and beta, I was not there. But so I worked on the software. We even managed to change something in the hardware while I was remote. And it's really interesting how we managed all these things, and it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we changed part of the system there. We shipped it to me. I tested it, all the software, and then we had another copy of that here. I asked them, and they put it together, and then I connected over remotely. I updated the software, and it worked. We figured it out.
This is one thing for, like a SaaS company or some sort of software company to be working remotely. But for a hardware company that needs serious engineering, like physical engineering, I would have thought that would have been much more difficult remotely.
It is difficult, but one thing is we need to be clear. We are not fully hardware company. We have hardware component. It is a part of like our, I would say, proprietary system. But it's not. You don't build it from
complex.
Scratch. It's the things that are manageable, even remotely.
Right.
And we had people here. I mean, obviously we had engineers, so I didn't need to be fully here. But parts of there are a few things which is I'm working myself hands on. I would say so.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not as hard as it might seem. It is hard, but we figured out. And one interesting thing that when I got to US in I think September last year, and first time I tried myself the working system like that's out there in the wild. Even I was not expecting how cool this experience is.
Yeah.
Until I tried myself, though I built the whole thing, but until I tried
Right.
myself,
You saw your own baby.
like I was really okay. This was really smooth. I just
Yeah.
like tapped the button, something came away. I just like went outside.
Yeah.
I took it. I went back, and it's like done. Like in 10 minutes, didn't pass.
You don't swipe a card to pay or anything.
Yeah,
It's
I
all,
mean, this is really like different. It's
Yeah.
really much more convenient and,
Yeah.
and easy.
So what parts of, are you guys still just in LA?
Yeah, so it's one zone right now. We paused right now. We are relaunching
Okay.
because we are. So with our current application that we have, you don't see the merchants there.
Okay.
You don't see their storefronts. You see Robomart snacks, pharmacy, and other types. So we are completely moving into marketplace where we have different like brands with their storefronts.
Yeah.
I don't know, let's say some brands pharmacy, some other brands ice cream,
Yeah.
some other brands groceries, and the consumer can choose which store. Even if it's like there are two different brands with their groceries, they can choose what they want, and
Mhm.
they can search even. So that's how we are going to relaunch, and it's so we are a marketplace. We don't own the inventory.
Okay. So you
That's
partner
our
with
merchants. Yeah.
companies that are selling groceries and pharmacy products.
Actually, like there are several categories that we see will start, but eventually we think that we've got like really strong intention to launch a Robomart with electronics.
Right. Yeah.
But it's really where we it's great. We would like to have this, but at the moment our focus is more on like snacks, pharmacy that we had, or cafes.
Mm-hmm.
Like some kind of food that's already prepared.
Like
you can
sandwiches and
eat. Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Or something that you can just heat up and eat.
Right.
This kind of foods we actually have already contract
Mm-hmm.
company that booked Robomarts for this. Ice cream is very, very big interest for ice cream, actually.
You're reinventing the ice cream truck.
Yeah, on demand
Right.
and much faster.
Yeah. Same music or?
Yeah, we might do something like that. I think there is also a few other types of Robomarts, but again, this is now we are working with the merchants. Like, what do you want to put there, and it's up to them actually to put the prices, to work on the selection.
Yeah.
And it's their storefront. So we are just a marketplace.
And how many vehicles do you have deployed now?
We have right now 2 vehicles and working on
Adding more.
like several dozens that we already
Nice.
signed the
Yeah.
contract.
Mm-hmm. On the autonomous part, is that something you guys are actively working on?
It's going slowly, not actively. The focus is on really scaling this proposition. The beauty of the model is that we don't need actually the self-driving tech to be profitable.
Right.
So this is a completely new way, the first new way of shopping since e-commerce. Like today you have 2 ways, right? You go either to store or buy online and somebody delivers to you. So store hailing, as we call it, is the third way of shopping.
Yeah.
And it's not just a small difference with delivery. There's a fundamental difference here. It's much more convenient for consumers, and there are I would say like 3 differences than from the delivery. There's obviously also a difference from going to the store. First, there is no basket creation.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the biggest friction points for consumers. So usually when e-commerce talks about delivery times, they talk only about delivery. They don't count in the basket creation time for the consumer, which is in a sense painful, and it takes a lot of time.
By basket creation, you mean going online, picking all the stuff you want?
Creating your virtual basket and then paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
The creation of the basket,
right.
Paying might be easy. Second, it's much faster. Like this is one of the things we wanted to prove in our beta, and we got on average 9 minutes, 15 seconds, I think, more exactly, from the moment the user opened the application till the moment they got the products on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
So the full experience for the consumer is on average like 9 minutes.
Wow. So if I'm in one of your service areas, I pull out the app, I put in my order, and 9 minutes, the van pulls up.
No, it comes a bit faster, and then
I take it
take another minute or something.
Okay, cool.
And then you are done. The products are in your hand. this whole cycle is on average 9 minutes.
Wow.
So that's actually was our assumption initially. That's what we put in our models. We put even a bit bigger number.
Yeah.
So it's good that we have less number.
Yeah.
So that even if with scale and some things that we are still going to be in a good shape. And the third thing is that for certain categories of products, specifically and especially for fresh produce, people want to choose themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, because you look at the apples and everyone has a method of picking which one of the apples they want to take and stuff.
And statistics here, and this is actually one of the biggest chunks of e-commerce, not in general, like market. Like I think in US, the groceries are $800 billion market only in US. And we were checking the statistics before, even like from the beginning we started, that only less than 3% happens online. So with all these like advancements in delivery and e-commerce, people still overwhelming majority goes to store. And there were like many surveys why people do this. And the number one reason is because people want to choose themselves.
Yeah.
That's why they don't use delivery. And even we were checking the statistics during COVID when people either were like, I don't know, forced or like preferably they would like to get something delivered. Yeah. We were seeing at the height, the peak of the COVID, that maybe about 20 or like 30% would order online, but still majority of people would go to store, even in this situation.
Yeah.
It means how important this is for the consumer. I mean, for this, you either need to go to store or hail a Robomart. So
exactly.
And hail a Robomart is much more convenient.
It's much more convenient, much more easier. I want to talk to you, since you are in the space, I know you guys aren't doing it right now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the state of autonomous systems today. So I was visiting my friends in Irvine last week, and they live on the UC Irvine campus, and they have these little small robots that do food delivery from restaurants on campus. And I hadn't seen these before. So I moved to Armenia about 2.5 years ago, and obviously we don't have them there. One of the interesting things was, as they cross the street, they stop in the middle where the divider is, and they wait until it is so safe to cross that they can easily cross. They can easily take, 5-6 minutes to cross the street. And at times they'll get stuck there for 10, 15, 20 minutes until there's no cars coming, and then eventually they can come out. So this seems like a fundamental, I don't know if it's an infrastructure issue or if the software just needs to be so cautious because of the regulations or whatnot. But for a long time, we kept hearing about autonomous as here, or, it's 2 years away. It's been 2 years away for a long time now. What is the state of autonomous vehicle technology today, and where do you think we'll be realistically in the coming 5 years?
I think it's the technology in general. If you don't focus on different players, it's advancing very fast.
Yeah.
But if you check, first of all, we need to separate these sideway robots from the actual self-driving cars on the road. So completely different systems.
Right.
I mean, they have common things, the same way they have common things with the warehouse robots, but the actual challenges are really, really different.
Right.
I mean, the vehicles on the roads, they are like dangerous.
Right.
These
the
robots
robot, worst case, your lunch gets ruined.
Yeah, but they can also hurt people, obviously, but it's not as
serious
as a big, like a ton car coming to you at a high speed, right? Even if it's low speed. So if we talk about sideway robots, even there, it's still still not there. I think it's maybe kind of a known secret in the industry that a lot of these robots actually are teleoperated.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And they still wait 10 minutes to cross the street.
Yeah, I mean, they probably have some of them, some are part of autonomy, but they tend to switch a lot to the teleoperated drivers. And they're very slow, and I'm not going to focus on like how really quick they can deliver things. That's another part. But if we come to self-driving cars, we have seen that like maybe 5 years ago, there was like this hype about it. Everybody was investing. And then we saw some consolidations or
Yeah.
some companies going bust, and people moving to other companies.
Yeah.
So we have seen that, and there are right now still a lot of players in the space. Probably the leaders, I would say, there are a few companies out of what's on the public, right? Because some companies might be keeping it
Right.
confidential, but I think it's more or less coincides with
Right.
what you see on the public. So obviously, I don't want to compare them, but at least I would say 3 companies that I know that are really leading in our part of the world. I mean, obviously, there's also a lot of happening in China, let's say. It's Tesla, it's Waymo, it's Cruise.
Right.
There is a big difference between Tesla's approach and Cruise plus Waymo approach.
Right.
Obviously, they also have differences, but conceptually, Tesla is a different approach.
Yeah.
And we see that Waymo and Cruise, they are testing it a lot in Bay Area, right? They are actually launched in certain areas, even there, like taxi service. When I was in Bay Area, I could see a lot, like usually in South Bay, you would see a lot of Waymo cars. In San Francisco, you would see a lot of Cruise cars. And it's interesting.
When you see the Cruise car, is it's driverless, but there's someone in the passenger seat, right? Like a Cruise employee?
At that time, when I was more often there, like I haven't been there probably consistently for the last 2 years, I don't remember seeing without drivers.
Okay.
Again, this is not the person who's actually driving.
Right. It's
a
someone
safety
who's
driver,
monitoring.
safety driver, yeah. I've seen them getting the wheel, grabbing the wheel. But usually, even when they are not actually driving, they tend to keep their hands closed because they need to be attentive, right? If something happens, they grab it quickly. But I think they have come a long way, and they are really showing some great progress in the fields where they are operating. I'll talk a bit about Tesla too, and then come about general challenges, as I think. And I mean, obviously, we've also seen the incident and tragic incident with Uber,
right?
And actually, I don't know if you have seen. There's a show going on about Uber's history. I really recommend it watching. So coming to Tesla, so Tesla's approach is I would say radically different. Again, the end goal is self-driving cars, but it's different from how they approach the technology, but also the business side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Tesla is full cameras only, starting with the level 2 technology on the level 2 self-driving, not self-driving fully, level 2, autonomy, level 2 of autonomy on the highways, like as a driver assisting technology, and then working towards advancing it.
Yeah.
Waymo and Cruise take another approach, like directly. We need to get to level 4. There's also level 5. That's another story, but we'll talk about it. I'll say a few words. But so there's like philosophy is different on how we get there, and also what sensors we are using. So Waymo's approach is that we need different sensors, also Cruise, like lidars, cameras, and other ultrasound. The radars. Tesla is even removing radars, right?
Camera only, computer vision.
That's risky, but still also I think Musk's approach is that it also we need to look at the economic side, and lidars, they are still not there in a price.
It's too expensive.
It's too expensive, but he's also confident they can get there with only cameras. Again, I'm not seeing internally their progress. I think it's possible. I don't know if it's really possible that quickly as Musk wants, but it's exciting to see how it goes. So there's another thing that Tesla is different. Like for Cruise and Waymo, all the development of self-driving tech and operations of their cars on the road are predominantly cost for them. They spend money on it. In case of Tesla, they have sold more than 1 million, probably already. I don't know, maybe already it's 2 million. It was 1 million 2 years ago, I think. Cars, which have this hardware already inside, and they can be updated over the air. And they are using all this fleet to get the data to train new models. That the way they are doing is very smart. I like if you check their like autonomy days, how they are sharing. Like imagine one thing that I can say, like imagine they have a current autopilot basically working on a computer in the Tesla, they can have multiple new versions that they want to test. They test it internally. They can deploy all these versions into the fleet and run this new autopilot in a parallel to the main one, and check the outcomes to see if they give the same output signals or not, the same decisions, and then compare. And if there's a difference, they send it back to headquarters to analyze, to see why there was a difference with the current system and which one is correct.
Right.
If you have this scale, you can test this and advance this much more faster. So for them, all this fleet of millions of cars,
it's like
is
data
not a
collection
cost
for them.
They already sold it,
Right. Yeah.
and got the money for it.
Whereas
Obviously
Waymo and Cruise are still spending money on just collecting the data. Yeah.
So there's even the Cruise and Waymo, they can't have this scale on the physical world. They obviously all of
they
them
don't have enough cars.
They all of them do a lot of testing in simulations, and that's great. But in the end, you need to actually test a lot in the real world. And I don't know, maybe they have a few thousand cars. It's still, you can't compare with millions, right?
Yeah.
So it's different ways, and we'll see which one gets there first. I'm myself personally very bullish about Tesla.
Yeah. Do you want to make a prediction on when you could just wake up, get in your car, no touching the wheel, get to work?
I don't think it's...
Let's say in California.
Okay, but that's more specific because you need to say where it is. I think at least about California, we can talk about this, maybe not on every road, but on a major part. Maybe in 5 years we can do this.
In 5 years it will become normal.
Maybe, I don't know. I would say at least in the cities where there's good roads and
infrastructure. Yeah.
We will probably be able to see this.
Okay.
But it's important to keep in mind that this is actually the difference between level 4 and level 5 autonomy when we talk about it. Level 4 is that the system can drive as good as human, at least as good as human, in certain, it's called operational design domain, but basically, like, the simplest way is just imagine the area where it can do it.
Yeah.
Like this area, like this geographic area, and also like weather conditions and other stuff. So in these conditions, this system can work at least as good as human. That's level 4. Level 5 is like when you don't have this limitation. It can work everywhere on Earth as good as human.
As a human.
So that's no. If someone is trying to tell they are going to do level 5, it's actually strange for me because I think it's almost as difficult as creating artificial general intelligence. Probably.
Really?
Maybe not as much, but very, very close to there. So because imagine some really remote place with like these extreme weather conditions and stuff, where you haven't tested. Yeah. And you want something to drive there as good as human.
And the car doesn't have data from that type of experience.
This is much more. It means that it needs to be generalizing from the existing data as good as human. We've seen it only in one being in this universe that we know it's human. So
right.
I think it's akin to artificial general intelligence. I wouldn't speak about level 5. That's very
it's ways off.
Ways off. But level 4, I think we will see it.
Okay.
Pretty soon.
Well, let's go back to Robomart for just a second. I know you're building out a team. You guys raised a seed round, or was it a pre-seed round last year?
We had pre-seed round, yeah.
Okay, your pre-seed
in the process of seed, yeah.
After that, I remember you wrote that you're looking to build out a team in Armenia now of engineers. How did that go, and were you able to successfully find people?
We have few engineers in Armenia, and we have few open positions right now. Right now, for me, most importantly, is the software engineering manager I want to hire. Yeah. So right now, basically, I'm managing all the software and hardware parts, and there's too much like architectural level things I need to be working on. So I think our software part is advanced enough for someone to and it like has enough, I would say, things that needs to be done there that we can have someone who can
Start
really
managing.
lead the whole software team and also grow it, because
Yeah.
we need to grow it. We even now have open positions, but I'm focusing fully on getting this person then later can hire himself or herself the engineers that we need to get there. And it's like almost all the software we have is like cloud, like web applications, mobile applications, except the software, embedded software in Robomart. So everything else, like
Can be done.
we are hiring someone who can manage this.
Yeah.
And because our software team is mostly in Armenia or in a closer time zones, I want to get someone there that can lead the whole team.
Yeah.
For the software.
Was it easy to convince your co-founders who are not Armenian that it's a good idea to build a team in Armenia?
Yeah, I think it's because we have already a few people, and they've seen that it's really.
So before
great.
you started building a team, there was a few people already on board?
No. I mean, like when we started hiring the few additional people, we hired a few people, and then I mean, it was obvious that they are doing a great job, and we can get some great talent in Armenia also. And also, it's obviously, as a CTO, I would say that the easier it is for me to organize things.
Yeah,
it's also facts because I'm there very often, and I want to be there more often. That's, I mean, something I want to do, and I'm working towards that. So it will be much easier for me to interact with people.
Yeah.
It's not like it's going to be exclusively Armenia, no.
Right. Yeah, no.
But
having a presence there.
But having presence, gathering the team, and also being close to it because I'm there very often. So that's obviously also facts because it's making it easier to reach our goals.
Great. Let's wrap up by speaking about the state of science in Armenia. So you're one of the most vocal advocates for advancing research activity and funding for science in Armenia. You're a part of Gituzh, which is an advocacy group that works towards that goal. What successes have you guys had since launching Gituzh about a year ago now, right? And what do you have planned for the coming years?
I would say the number one success is that we were able to consolidate such a great and big group of people and organizations around this issue, which is and this the number of people and organizations, if you check, it's unprecedented to be consolidated around something.
How many people is it?
We are more than 170 founders and top managers, mostly high tech, but not only companies, and 18 organizations, business unions, foundations, and also there's a union of schools.
Yeah.
So this is really unprecedented, and this is, I would say, the first thing that so many people were really interested in this and are vocal about it.
Yeah.
That's already itself as an achievement, but obviously we need to see some progress, and we got really good progress, I would say, last year. In a nutshell, we can see it in the budget of science. But obviously, budget is not just money. It needs to be based on the programs that are implemented. And there are several programs that have been implemented last year and also are being launched now. First time in Armenia for the last 30 years. Last year, Science Committee launched, due to this increase of funding, grants for 5 years for research grants, which was not there.
It was shorter term grants before?
Yeah. It was mostly 2 years, but the year before there were grants for 3 years, but 5 years, this is like really new.
And 2 years for science is a very short amount of time. You can't do anything.
People and also with all the bureaucracy that there is still, which also is a big problem, needs to be changed. People would start like project and then start like wrapping up.
It's not worth applying for the grants again.
And there are new programs being launched for international scientists who wanna either move to Armenia or start remotely building research groups in Armenia, and they are like, I hope, launching soon. We are trying to help the science committee to basically spread the word about these programs so that more people apply and they have better competition and choose the best ones. I think last time I heard about it, they have already like several dozens already interested. They haven't launched it yet, but they already have interested people who are actually filled in the survey that they're interested. And
so these would be, sorry to interrupt you, these would be scientists from abroad who would advise, build out a group in Armenia that would be led by them, from either by them moving to Armenia or doing it remotely?
But there are two programs. One is like fellowships, which mandates basically the researcher to move to Armenia for 5 years and do the research there. There is another program which is basically someone who's established scientists abroad, and they are becoming a PI, principal investigator, and they have a co-investigator in Armenia, and they are working with them remotely mostly, but maybe spending, I don't know, a month or two in Armenia working with them. I don't remember the exact requirements, but that's the idea. So for these two programs in total, I know there are several dozen. I don't remember exactly what is the distribution. And this is very important. Our approach in Gituzh, I would say that this is great. The problem is it is like few dozens. That's like very small scale. We need to get into this with much higher ambition and with much higher, being much more vocal on the government level that we are starting this and we are going to do this anyway. This is important because, first of all, it will spread the word much better. It will instill more trust from people if the government officials are giving these like public basically promises and pledges. But also people who are very really professionals and in a good environments, right? They have their working place, they have their access to younger talent that join their research groups. When they move somewhere, they look what's the environment there. Obviously, the environment, and by environment I don't mean like the buildings or the interior of the office. That's also important, but more importantly, I think, is obviously also like the compensation needs to be somehow competitive, at least taking into account obviously local prices also. But much more important, I think, is for them to understand who are their colleagues. Yeah, what is the environment where they can brainstorm, collaborate. And also, what is the access to like younger talent, like younger generation who are is there a lot of people who wants to become scientists? Like the more vocal we are, so I think we are going to first solve this issue that more young generation, people from young generation will decide to become scientists. So these people who think about moving to Armenia will understand that, okay, so I'm going to have access to a lot of young talent. Yeah. Because they also see there is changing something, right? There's going to be coming, obviously not only just vocal, they need to be programs also to make it more interesting for youth to go. But they themselves will understand, okay, if they are so vocal about it, and there are a lot of people are going to go there. If I don't have at least that environment now where I can talk a lot with and collaborate and then brainstorm with other scientists, at least maybe in 1, 2, 3 years, if I go now, it will be there. So I won't be mistaken by going there. So the more vocal, the more ambitious we are in these programs, we are going to have much more interest from international scientists and from the local like youth to choose scientific career. Yeah. So this is actually like part of the equation, obviously, because this is just about the numbers, which is important, but it's also about in what fields are these scientists, what they produce. All this funding increase that happened last year was basically the budget of the science committee, whose mandate is mostly in basic research, not exclusively, but if you check the KPIs they are putting there or the programs they are funding, it's mostly basic research, which means that it's just curiosity-driven research, and mostly the output is publications in highly rated journals.
Or conference or something.
I mean, we pushed, in a sense, for this. We advocated for this because we saw that if we don't do anything right now, we are going to lose the last remnants of whatever we have. Yeah. And it is required like immediate action. That's why we were so focused last year on this thing and on this with this approach, just increasing the funding for the specific programs that are there. Now, the important part is that this is going to be just a waste of resources if we don't actually ask ourselves, okay, what are the needs for the country?
Mm-hmm.
What are our goals? What are the goals for Armenia? What goals we put there? And how we can, from that goals, come back and think, okay, which type of R&D we need to do? And specifically, like, and I mean, if you look at other countries, they have obviously some funding for some funding agencies for basic research, which is just funding the curiosity-driven research, right? But there's always other agencies. In one way to do it is if you have other ministries, like let's say in case of US, like departments, right, which are responsible for solving tasks for the country in a specific area. I don't know, that's DOD or agriculture or healthcare, yeah. And they all have their separate internal budgets through some organs inside, some parts of their like team inside, or through some other agencies that are connected with them. They fund different programs which solve problems that these departments or several departments together or ministries together see. And this part is really lacking in Armenia. I mean, we don't have, besides high-tech industry ministry, which is, I would say, is failing at their job, but they have the several areas where they have a budget for R&D, but they can't even spend this properly, which is, in our opinion, is their responsibility. They should do it. They basically failed at it last year and probably last few years because there is no leader for the committee that is responsible for the defense R&D.
Mm-hmm.
And last year, out of $9 million they spent only $4
on defense R&D.
Yeah, and they just transferred the rest to some other lines in the budget and spent on something else, which might be even closer to what is defense R&D. But the problem is that was specifically allocated for defense
R&D,
and they didn't invest this properly.
Right.
So and we think that the number one problem there is no president for the committee which is responsible for this, and there was almost for the entire last 2 years there was no one there, just maybe a few months.
The role just wasn't filled.
Yeah, it's for the last 2 years it's mostly
vacant.
not filled. Like for 3 months there was someone, even he was not performing well at it.
It's surprising though, because if the money has already been allocated, why not find the projects to fund with it?
I don't know. You would hear a lot of people are saying that we have the money, we just don't have the projects. I don't think that's the case, to be honest. Especially here, we know there's a huge need, and maybe the regulations are the problem, so that these people who want to apply for these programs, they don't apply because I don't know what are the requirements from the government side. Then there needs to be someone who is trying to understand what are the problems for the players who can apply for these programs, and why aren't they applying? How we can listen to them and change some things if necessary, because not everything is right. Probably there are the requirements. And again, this is an example for the defense R&D. There are other things.
Right.
Like they have a Ministry of Economy. Like maybe some of the, let's say agriculture is their responsibility. Where is a special R&D budget for agriculture?
Yeah.
Which is specifically for solving our needs. Like we saw our government talking a lot about increasing the productivity of the labor, right, in the country. And part of it comes from the agriculture, obviously, right? Because it's a big part of the economy. Where are the specific grants for increasing this productivity in the agriculture?
Yeah.
Why don't they have a specific budget for that, like R&D department in the Ministry of Economy?
Yeah.
Or we can go to other places, like I don't know, Foreign Affairs Ministry. Why don't they have special budget for research in different fields? Let's say
international relations study, or
that's part of it, or
political science.
Let's say different topics regarding Artsakh.
Yeah,
like there are unfriendly countries nearby. Let's say just very mildly, and who are claiming that this is not Armenian heritage.
Right.
Where is your response in the scientific discussion and then
publication of literature.
Because like a lot of these people, when it comes to discussing like into other platforms like political and other, they tend sometimes to refer to scientific communities, right? Where is our response to this? Like really internationally competitive publications about this topic that is making sure that people know that this is really, and the truth is on our side in most of the cases, right? Or so why is it so hard to?
Yeah. I'm glad you put an emphasis on social sciences as well, because I think oftentimes when we talk about the needs of which areas of science and academic study really need a boost in Armenia, we often focus on things like tech. But I think social science and pushing more into social science and humanities areas is also extremely important, especially for a country like Armenia.
Yeah, I wanna just add here that there is this. I think people when hear R&D, they always think about STEM.
Right.
And I used to think like that too, to be honest. But then when we were starting all this activity and started researching international literature about this, there is a organization called OECD, which is probably a lot like people know, and they have a special manual how you should collect, first of all, how you should different expenditures in R&D, how you should like categorize them and then collect this data and report it. So it's like when you are comparing different countries or different fields, you are sure you are comparing the same things, right? So, and they have a lot of definitions there, and it probably was the first time I saw that when they're talking about R&D, research and development, right? They also include humanities, social sciences, because you can do the same things there. Because you also do research in social sciences, you also do research in humanities, right? And there can be even developments, because like in modern days you have a lot of social technologies, right? Media technologies, a lot of which is caused like this is already like the applied part of
it's like communication studies or something.
So you can have just curiosity driven research there too, but you can also have how you do the research, seeing some potential application. Already you create some technologies that you can apply to solve some problems. So when it comes to R&D, at least when we talk about it, we always talk not only about STEM, but humanities and social sciences. And I would say in case of Armenia, it is definitely not less important than STEM, maybe even more. Though we can see here in the defense R&D, it's not as well as I described, but there we have a huge gap.
And these are people from academia, people in our universities are also people who set narratives, political narratives for the country. So I think not focusing on that would be a huge mistake. And honestly, I think, without getting too political, I think it's a part of the reason why sometimes our political discourse is of such low quality in the country. So
and I want to add here that, I mean, we have still like I think about half of our research community is in humanities and social sciences, but the quality is very low. We still see and feel some kind of opposition from people in this part of the community for change, but we need this change. And
of course,
the discussion sometimes come to some like simple things like who is interested in our history or like things that are about us. So we should not tend to publish in English. I mean, look, we need to talk about us to other people, right? Because we are not existing in a vacuum. If we were like just one country sitting on Mars and it's only us, I mean, okay, maybe we can talk in Armenian and just write everything in Armenian. That's another thing. But we are not in vacuum. We need to put this discourse about our history, our heritage, about our culture, about our geography, about our internal relations, social issues and stuff. We need to start like really doing internationally competitive research here. I'm not saying you can't have really good create new knowledge in Armenian. The question is how we measure it. Like how I am as a person who is, or not me, let's forget about me, someone who needs to, let's say, decide which project they need to fund. If let's say that person is not expert in that field, how can they judge if this thing is competitive?
They can't.
If you don't have If let's say we have only 1 or 2 or 3 people in Armenia who are
Yeah.
telling they are experts in this field,
Yeah.
and they know each other, let's say, or they like each other or don't like. I mean, you need to have some kind of statistical big number
Yeah.
that you can make sure that this system of peer review,
Mm-hmm.
which is not science only thing, it's peer reviews everywhere. But the science community managed to put this in
practice.
In practice very well to really get a good quality and define what is good. I mean, this system is every system has flaws.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of bad things about that. It's not working in many places, but there is nothing better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but the question comes: okay, how do we define right now? What are our goals? What strategy we have to achieve them? What actual budget are we allocating to this? And we think that at least for defense R&D, for Armenian studies, for AI, for agriculture, for biotech, for space, we need to have some strategy either separately or in groups, in one or wherever, that will really outline like the timeline, how we are, what we are going to achieve, like specific budgets and targets, and we should start like really implementing that. We don't have it.
Yeah.
Some people refer us to check the government program for until 2026, but I don't know, maybe 20% or less of the points outlined there have some numbers next to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to actually see what are the targets.
Right. Tigran, our very last question, I want you to tell us how you envision in the 5 to 10 year time frame Robomart and the state of science in Armenia. What's your wish for the next 5 to 10 years?
We were discussing this internally with co-founders about Robomart.
Yeah.
So our vision is to get to 1 million Robomarts operating.
Wow. In 5 to 10 years?
In 10
years.
In 2030, let's say.
Okay.
That was our... So it's very bold, very ambitious, but that's what we put in front of us. In terms of science in Armenia, in 5 years, I think we need to really put some targets and start working towards it. I think we need to put target of how many researchers we need in the country, and our thinking in Gituzh is that at least we need to have 50% more than now.
What do we have now? How many do
we have? We have about 4,000, but to be honest, I don't... usually when... This is just the number of people. The problem here is that usually when international, even like in OECD I mentioned, right, when they talk about the number of researchers per million population, they talk about full-time equivalent. So a lot of researchers in Armenia are working part-time. So if you go to full-time, it's going to be much less.
Right. Full-time
equivalent. So we need to have, at least for per million population, number of researchers need to grow at least 50%, we think. And I think it's ambitious, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm.
We need to increase up to 1% of GDP our public funding of R&D. That's for sure. There is even maybe quicker, not 5 years, like 25, so 3 years. We need to get there, and it's possible. I mean, we've done the even calculations with the several ministries, with the high-tech industry ministry, with the science committee, and if you start, like, if you put together even like some strategies, even in a very high level, you can get to this number easily. There needs to be obviously coming from these strategies that are serving the needs of the country. You can devise already which fields of science are going to be priority for us. So there needs to be some number. Let's say 80% of the basic research funding needs to be going in these directions, because that's going to be feeding our needs in that areas. Obviously, we need to have some portion of funding more general, because you never know what can come up, and that's the basically essence of basic research. Why people invest in it. But there needs to be some priority fields. And also we need to have like longer goal. Like we know that there is some goals list for 2050. There are some numbers outlines there. Many of these numbers, if we actually say that, okay, these are the goals, are based on the how you are going to advance your R&D infrastructure capabilities. You can't reach these numbers if you don't advance your R&D in the relevant fields. But there needs to be also some numbers there specifically about R&D, that we need to get, let's say, top 15 countries, innovative countries in the world. Let's put ambitious goals and get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we were one of the leaders in the world in researchers per million population number. We need to get back there.
When were we there?
During the end of like Soviet Union times. If you think about Armenia as a separate country,
just the Soviet Republic of Armenia,
we had like much bigger number, maybe about 10,000 researchers per million population. Now it's 1,300.
Wow.
Or maybe 1,000. So we lost it dramatically. And now the leaders of the world have that number, about 10,000.
Right.
Like Israel is the first, and they have 10. I think South Korea has somewhere about 7 or 8,000.
Okay, Tigran, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting.
I know Gituzh is working on a lot right now, so I hope in the future you'll come back again and give us those updates. Thank you so much, Tigran.
Thanks.